the dawn of the 20th century, San Francisco was desperate to be admired. It wanted to be seen as America's shining western gateway, a city of progress, commerce, and limitless opportunity. Ships arrived daily from across the Pacific, carrying goods, immigrants, and ambition. The city was loud, crowded, and confident, but beneath that confidence was a fear no one wanted to name, because admitting weakness would threaten everything San Francisco had worked to build. In 1900, the idea that a medieval disease could exist in a modern American city felt impossible. Bubonic plague belonged to history books and distant lands. It belonged to Europe's dark ages, not to a booming U.S. port city filled with electricity, railways, and innovation. That belief that modernity itself was protection would become one of San Francisco's most dangerous delusions. The first suspicious deaths occurred quietly, without headlines or public warnings. Men were found dead in small rooms in Chinatown, their bodies swollen, their fevers intense, their lymph nodes grotesquely enlarged. Doctors who examined them recognized the signs almost immediately. This was not a mystery illness. This was plague, and that realization triggered panic not about saving lives, but about protecting reputation. San Francisco West leaders understood what the word plague meant for business. If the city was labeled infected, ships would be quarantined. Trade would stop, insurance rates would skyrocket, tourism would collapse, the economy would bleed. So, instead of confronting the disease, officials chose a strategy that would define the outbreak. Denial. Medical reports were suppressed, death certificates were altered, autopsies were rushed or discouraged entirely. When physicians spoke out, they were accused of fear-mongering, or some were threatened with the loss of their medical licenses. The truth wasn't ignored because it was unclear. It was ignored because it was inconvenient. Chinatown became the focal point of both the disease and the deception. City officials framed the outbreak as a problem exclusive to the Chinese community, feeding into existing racism and xenophobia. Newspapers hinted that the neighborhood was unsanitary, immoral, and foreign. This narrative allowed the city to claim the disease was contained, even as evidence suggested otherwise. Entire blocks of Chinatown were sealed off under armed guard. Residents were forbidden from leaving. Businesses were shut down. Families were trapped inside crowded buildings while officials debated what to do next. The quarantine wasn't designed to stop the plague. It was designed to control optics, to make the rest of the city feel safe, while one community absorbed the consequences. But the bacteria didn't respect borders or prejudice. The rats that carried plague-carrying fleas moved freely through warehouses, docks, and sewers. They traveled from Chinatown into wealthier neighborhoods, onto ships, and into homes far removed from the quarantine zone. The disease spread invisibly, while officials insisted publicly that nothing was wrong. Behind the scenes, the situation grew more desperate. Doctors secretly documented new cases outside Chinatown. Dock workers collapsed. Sailors fell. Bodies began appearing in parts of the city that didn't fit the official story. Each death made the lie harder to maintain, but instead of transparency, leaders escalated their efforts to suppress the truth. The federal government eventually took notice. Public health service officers were sent to investigate reports that San Francisco was hiding an out when they confirmed the presence of plague. They demanded action. City and state officials responded with hostility, accusing federal authorities of exaggeration and political sabotage. The conflict became a power struggle, with public health caught in the middle. Meanwhile, residents lived in a state of quiet confusion. Rumors spread faster than facts. Some people sensed something was wrong, but couldn't confirm it. Others trusted the reassurances given by officials and newspapers. The absence of clear information created a dangerous vacuum, one filled by fear, denial, and misinformation. As months passed, the outbreak worsened. Some bodies were cremated quickly, eliminating evidence. Others were buried with minimal documentation. Families were told their loved ones died of natural causes. The official death toll remained suspiciously low, despite mounting proof that the plague was spreading. When the truth finally became impossible to hide, the damage was already extensive. The plague had reached other parts of California. San Francisco's attempt to protect its image had failed catastrophically. The delayed response had allowed the disease to entrench itself, turning a manageable outbreak into a prolonged crisis. Even then, the response revealed deep inequalities. Chinatown faced aggressive sanitation campaigns, forced demolitions, and invasive inspections. Wealthier neighborhoods were treated cautiously, with minimal disruption. The message was clear. Some lives were worth protecting more than others. By the time the outbreak was brought under control, dozens were officially dead. Unofficially, the number was likely much higher. Records were incomplete. Names were missing. Entire stories were erased. What survived was a sanitized version of history, stripped of responsibility and accountability. Today, the 1900 San Francisco plague is rarely mentioned. It doesn't align with the city's self-image. There are no memorials to the victims, no public reckoning with the lies that allowed the disease to spread. The streets where it happened are now vibrant, crowded, and unaware. The plague ended not because the city was honest, but because nature eventually ran its course and federal intervention forced change. San Francisco survived despite its leadership, not because of it, and the lesson that should have been learned was quietly ignored. The most unsettling part of this story isn't that a plague happened. It's that when faced with a choice between truth and reputation, the city chose reputation and never truly apologized. And that leaves us with a final, unsettling thought. If a modern city could hide a medieval disease at the height of its ambition, what else could be hidden today? How long would it take before we realized the silence wasn't their assurance? It was a warning. Too many records were altered. Too many bodies were buried without documentation. Too many decisions were made in private meetings with no witnesses. History was edited in real time, and by the time anyone realized it, the final draft had already been published. So, continue to stick to our channel for more of our documentaries, and do not hesitate to subscribe to our channel. Be safe.